I'm Tracy, 68, sitting on my new front porch, watching my 9-year-old granddaughter, Lily, ride her bike in the driveway. I'm filled with a sense of peace I haven't felt in years. It's been 6 months since I turned the tables on my son and daughter-in-law, and our family is slowly healing. But it all started with a bombshell revelation that shattered everything I thought I knew about my son, Ethan, and his wife, Vivian. It was a normal afternoon, and Lily was staying with me while Ethan and Vivian attended a business event. As I watched her carefully arrange her dolls on the coffee table, she whispered in my ear, "Grandma, Mommy and Daddy are sending you to a nursing home today." I heard them talking last night. The words hit me like a ton of bricks. I felt my heart shatter into a million pieces. How could my own son, the boy I'd raised with so much love and care, plot to send me away without even telling me? I remembered the way Ethan had changed since he married Vivian, a woman from a wealthy family who was used to getting what she wanted. She'd always been cold and distant towards me, and I'd suspected that she didn't approve of our close relationship. But I never imagined that she'd convince Ethan to take such a drastic step. After Lily's revelation, I packed a few things and left the house. I didn't know where I was going, but I couldn't stay there and wait for them to come and take me away. As I walked down the street, I felt a strange sense of liberation. I'd been living a lie for the past 5 years, hiding the truth about our family's wealth from Ethan and Vivian. You see, my late husband, Henry, was a brilliant inventor. He spent his days tinkering in our garage, coming up with small inventions that made our lives easier. At first, he didn't think much of his creations, but then he came up with an automatic pet feeder. It was a simple idea, but it changed our lives forever. The pet feeder was a huge success, and Henry started receiving royalty checks in the mail. At first, the checks were small, but as the product gained popularity, the money started pouring in. Henry and I were stunned. We'd never imagined that we'd become wealthy overnight. But Henry was a wise man. He knew that too much money too soon could be a bad thing, especially for Ethan. He wanted our son to build his own life and his own success, without relying on our family's wealth. So, we decided to live a modest life, keeping our fortune a secret from everyone, including Ethan. After Henry passed away from cancer 5 years ago, I continued to live in our small house, pretending to be just an ordinary old woman. I clipped coupons, bought generic groceries, and lived on a tight budget. Ethan and Vivian never suspected a thing. They thought I was struggling to make ends meet, and they never offered to help. But now, as I walked towards the bank, I knew that it was time for the truth to come out. I needed to access my safety deposit box and show Ethan and Vivian who they'd really been trying to get rid of. When I arrived at the bank, I asked to speak to the manager. I told him that I needed to access all of my safety deposit boxes. The manager, a polite man named Mr. Thompson, led me through the vault's heavy doors. When he saw my account information, his demeanor changed completely. He looked at me with newfound respect and said, "Mrs. Thompson, we haven't seen you in quite some time. I trust everything has been satisfactory with your accounts." I nodded and replied, "Perfectly satisfactory." As I lifted the metal box from its slot, I felt a sense of anticipation. Inside lay documents that told a story Ethan had never known, a truth I'd buried alongside his father. I thought back to the day Henry was diagnosed with cancer. He'd held my hand and made me promise to keep the patents a secret from Ethan. He wanted our son to build his own life first, to learn the value of hard work and independence. I'd kept my promise, but now I knew that it was time for Ethan to face the truth. As I sat in the bank's private conference room, looking at the documents in front of me, I realized that Henry had been right. Wealth without wisdom was meaningless. Ethan and Vivian had been so focused on their own financial problems that they'd lost sight of what really mattered: family. I decided to take matters into my own hands. I hired a private investigator, MS Carter, to look into Ethan and Vivian's financial situation. I also contacted my lawyer, Mr. Reed, and told him everything. He helped me draw up a new will and a trust fund for Lily, ensuring that she'd be taken care of no matter what happened. A few days later, I received MS Carter's report. It was worse than I'd imagined. Ethan and Vivian were in significant debt, with credit cards maxed out, a second mortgage on their house, and car payments on two luxury vehicles they couldn't afford. Vivian had been researching nursing homes for the past 6 months, looking for the cheapest facilities she could find. She'd also been spreading rumors about my mental state, trying to convince our neighbors that I was becoming increasingly confused and difficult to manage. The final straw was when I learned that Vivian had been neglecting Lily. The poor girl was waking up at 6:30 every morning to make her own breakfast, walking to school alone because Vivian couldn't be bothered to drive her, and spending afternoons at the neighbor's house because no one was home when school ended. I knew that I had to do something to protect Lily. I decided to confront Ethan and Vivian. I invited them over to my new house, the one I'd bought next door to theirs. When they arrived, they were shocked to see me looking so well. They tried to pretend that everything was okay, but I could see the guilt in their eyes. I sat them down and showed them the documents from the bank. I told them about Henry's patents and our family's wealth. I also showed them MS Carter's report, exposing their lies and their financial problems. Ethan and Vivian were speechless. They couldn't believe what they were hearing. I looked at Ethan and said, "I've been supporting you for years, hoping that you develop the character to handle real responsibility. But instead, you've let Vivian's influence cloud your judgment. You've chosen money over family, and you've hurt the people who love you the most." Ethan hung his head in shame. He knew that he'd made a big mistake. Vivian, on the other hand, tried to defend herself. She said that they were just trying to do what was best for me, that they were worried about my well-being. But I wasn't buying it. I knew that their motives were purely selfish. I told them that I'd bought the house next door so that I could be close to Lily. I also told them about the trust fund I'd set up for her, which they couldn't touch. I said, "Lily is my future. She's the only person in this family who still has a pure heart. I'm going to make sure that she's protected no matter what." Ethan and Vivian were stunned. They realized that they'd underestimated me. They'd thought that I was just a helpless old woman, but they were wrong. I was a force to be reckoned with, and I wasn't going to let them get away with what they'd done. In the end, Ethan and Vivian apologized. They promised to work on their marriage and to be better parents to Lily. I told them that I was willing to give them a second chance, but only if they proved that they could change. It hasn't been easy. The first few weeks after the revelation were difficult, but slowly, things are starting to improve. Ethan and Vivian are spending more time with Lily, and they're trying to rebuild their relationship with me. And Lily, bless her heart, has adapted quickly to having grandma next door. She comes over after school every day, and we spend hours in the garden, planting flowers and vegetables. As I watch Lily ride her bike, I can't help but think about Henry. I know that he's looking down on us, smiling. He always believed in the power of family, and he knew that some lessons can only be learned the hard way. I'm grateful for the second chance that our family has been given. We've been through a lot, but we're stronger because of it. And I know that as long as we stick together, we can overcome anything.